Pennsylvania, injured Mr. Trump's ear and left the suspect dead, say a Secret Service agent president Sunday at his Florida golf club. Warning Donald Trump is safe, a suspect is in custody, and the FBI is investigating what it calls an apparent assassination attempt on the former president Sunday at his Florida golf club. Authorities say a Secret Service agent spotted a rifle in the bushes near where Mr. Trump was golfing Sunday afternoon and opened fire.
They have an agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual.
Agents rushed Mr. Trump to safety. According to the sheriff, a witness saw the suspect run out of the bushes and jump into a black Nissan. He was arrested a short time later. 3 law enforcement sources tell NBC News that suspect has been identified as 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh. Routh was unarmed when arrested, and it's not clear if he ever fired a weapon. But investigators say they recovered a semi-automatic rifle with a scope, 2 backpacks, and a GoPro camera at the scene, not far from the former president.
Probably between 300 and 500 yards, but with a rifle and a scope like that, that's not a long distance.
The suspect has a long criminal and civil court history. He's also been outspoken on his support for Ukraine. In an interview with Semaphore last year, Routh discussed his efforts helping volunteers with the war effort there.
Ukraine is reluctant to be cooperative.
According to public records, Routh voted in a Democratic primary in March. In 2020, Routh wrote to Mr. Trump on social media, saying he supported him in 2016, but expressing disappointment with the former president. Overnight, in a post on Truth Social, Mr. Trump thanking the Secret Service and law enforcement for keeping him safe, and said it was a, quote, interesting day. Writing earlier in campaign fundraising emails, quote, my resolve is only stronger after another attempt on my life. Sunday's apparent assassination attempt would be the second attempt on Mr. Trump's life in 3 months. A July shooting during a political rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, injured Mr. Trump's ear and left the suspect dead. That incident is now being investigated by law enforcement and Congress. No motive has yet been determined. Now, both Vice President Harris and President Biden released statements overnight condemning political violence and commending the work of the Secret Service here in trying to keep Donald Trump safe, with President Biden's statement going still further, suggesting that the Secret Service might need every resource, capability, and protective measure to ensure the former president's safety. House Speaker Mike Johnson on television this morning with a similar message, suggesting Congress could get involved. Savannah?
Garrett Hake leading us off. Thank you.
This week, we highlight another life well lived.
Take 2 steps to your right. Take 2 steps to your right. Come back. Driver, walk straight back. Keep walking.
Keep that long.
We have a press conference I'm going to take you to now. This is the Martin County Sheriff holding an update on this apparent assassination attempt. Let's listen in.
The witness from the incident at Trump International was flown to the scene by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and he was able to make a positive ID. So, of course, then we knew we had the right suspect.
And he was not armed when you took him into custody?
He was not armed when we got him out of the car. We didn't search the car. We waited till the FBI got there, and then we used our flatbed. Traffic was horrible out there, you can imagine. We had our flatbed Sheriff's Office wrecker, put the vehicle up and take it down to wherever they wanted it in Palm Beach County.
And Sheriff, you guys have repeatedly touted that the South Florida Task Force operates on communication between counties. This was the biggest test of that communication. Kind of talk about how that led up to this.
Well, you know, preparation is always the key. We have worked so closely with Sheriff Bradshaw and his people over the years. We have a task force. We're all together. So it was really a seamless handoff of the information. And that was critical. You know, they knew the vehicle they were looking for. Had they not gotten it to us quickly, we would have missed that car. And had we not had all the experience we have, because we invariably are stopping high-profile felony cars coming out of Palm Beach, coming out of Broward County. We're used to that. This is nothing new to us. And so the preparation, the large trucks, the takedown mannerisms that we use really worked out, because had that subject had the opportunity to chase, had we just turned on blue lights and he would have taken off, we would have had to pit him and crash him on I-95. Well, I'll say this, it was probably the highest profile stop this sheriff's office has ever made. We were stopping the man who was involved in an assassination attempt on the highest profile target on the planet. And I am thankful to the men and women of this sheriff's office that put themselves in harm's way and apprehended that suspect without incident.
Talk about the delicacies of not escalating this situation into a high-speed chase, because quickly he could recognize that there's people following him and turn it into that.
Yeah, good question. You know, the technicalities that went into not getting this elevated into a high-speed chase. Once we saw that vehicle and got the tag, we were locked on. We had a green light. There was no backing down at that point. There's nothing he could have done that would have shaken us loose. He could have fired at us. He could have driven that car as fast as it went. There was no way we would have pulled off that chase because of the high-profile nature of what he had done. So the fact that our troops out there, the men and women on the street, knew, don't get in there and turn on blue lights and play Dukes of Hazzard. Slowly move our cars into place, wait until we have adequate resources, and then don't give them a chance to run, just get them. And that's exactly what we did. It just works out. We had a lot of practice. You know our tagline, #Rawley County, and it worked.
Sheriff, can you speak to the bravery of your deputies to get involved in something that they don't really know what they're getting involved in at the moment?
The suspect in Sunday's apparent attempted assassination of former President Trump has made his first appearance in federal court. 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh was taken into custody after officials say he hid in bushes and pointed a semi-automatic style rifle with a scope at the former president about 400 yards away while he was golfing at his Florida golf course. The Secret Service spotted the suspect and opened fire before Routh ran away and was later arrested. Mr. Trump was not harmed in the incident. Court records show that the suspect has more than 100 criminal counts filed against him in North Carolina. NBC News correspondent not harmed in the incident. Court records show that the suspect has more than 100 criminal counts filed against him in North Carolina. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park is outside the courthouse for us in West Palm Beach. So, Kathy, walk us through what's been happening there this morning. Have you seen the suspect?
Christine, good morning. Yeah, I saw the suspect just momentarily. We're coming out of the federal courthouse right now. We do know, it is reportable, that he is facing 2 federal criminal charges, one of which includes a possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, which carries a maximum penalty of 15 years in prison, carries a $250,000 fine, 3 years of supervised release. The second charge that he is facing, possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number, that carries a maximum 5 years in prison, $250,000 fine, and 3 years supervised release. He came into court pretty comfortable, relaxed, and calm. He is now working with a public defender. The judge asked him a couple of questions about just his earnings. He says he makes about $3,000 a month. He has no money to his name. He has no real estate. He does own 2 trucks in Hawaii worth about $1,000 each. We also learned that he has a younger son who is 25 years old. But once again, he has 2 trucks in Hawaii. He says he makes about $3,000 a month. He has no money to his name. He has no real estate. He does own 2 trucks in Hawaii worth about $1,000 each. We also learned that he has a younger son who is 25 years old. But once again, he has a public defender. We're also learning that his next hearing, the next time we will see him in court, will be a bond hearing in the next 5 days, a pretrial detention hearing, and that is set for Monday, September 23rd. Obviously, since this was and we will see once again, he has a younger son who is 25 years old. But once again, he has a public defender. We're also learning that his next hearing, the next time we will see him in court, will be a bond hearing in the next 5 days, a pretrial detention hearing, and that is set for Monday, September 23rd. Obviously, since this was a federal courtroom, no cameras were allowed in court. We were not allowed to text, live tweet anything that was happening. So this information is coming in right now. But once again, we saw the suspect in court, pretty calm as far as his demeanor goes, nonchalant. And there was a point when he was talking to his public defender where he was cracking some smiles as well. But once again, he's facing those 2 federal criminal charges.
The Martin County Sheriff told us that he didn't say anything when he was arrested some 15 minutes after that event when deputies found him in the car. So where do things go from here? He's still there at the courthouse?
He was surrounded by U.S. Marshals. I counted at least 5 of them around the suspect today, and shortly after the proceedings, he was whisked away. So right now, as far as we know, he is in federal custody. We know overnight he was at the Palm Beach County Jail, but he came in earlier today just in shackles, wearing a navy blue jumpsuit, and once again, just kind of going with the flow and nodding to the judge as he was asked questions and saying, yes, Your Honor, but nothing out of the norm, at least when it comes to just what we saw today in the courtroom.
Certainly, the investigation just beginning into motives and what was going through his mind and why he
see. Thank God. The president's okay. I think we got a full report so far. We're down there tonight. But one thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they in fact need more services. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
Are you concerned more money or they need more personnel? They need more money? What kind of help do you think?
I think we need some more personnel. I think they may decide whether they need more personnel or not.
Are you
I was with my family of three, my mother, father, and me. We were driving on 195. We were actually about to enter 195 until we started seeing a bunch of patrol officers. And then that's when we saw Black Nissan speeding up. And with that Black Nissan, we started seeing a bunch of more patrol officers. A helicopter actually eventually came, and then it came to a complete halt. Standoff was actually in there for 2 hours. We saw no suspects like step outside of the car actually, but we saw multiple officers because we had a pair of binoculars actually, and we stepped outside of the car and we saw him. There was multiple officers with their rifles drawn at the car for a couple hours actually, and it looked like an intense standoff. But the officers actually made us like stand back a little bit so we actually can't get close to it. And yeah, they were just helping. They're saying to people that you can't enter, and if you actually do enter, you'll be trespassing and stuff like that. So we didn't want to get too close, and there was a bunch of cars onto the sides like speeding, probably like a bunch of police officers probably running and stuff like that. So it was very chaotic. We were very scared. At first, we thought it was just a regular suspect and probably he had a gun. So we were very scared. And we thought that he probably would have run to one of our cars and stuff like that. But after we saw the amount of cars and the amount of cars that kept on piling up, a bunch of trucks, a bunch of Escalades, a bunch of deputies just start rushing over, just running. I felt like we got a little bit more safe, but at first, yeah, we were terrified. We are actually petrified.
Now we'll bring in former Secret Service agent and NBC News contributor Evie Pomporis and former FBI special agent and NBC News analyst Clint Watts. Good morning to both of you. So, Evie, let's start with the Secret Service. What happened yesterday? You had a very sharp-eyed agent.
So that agent was actually leapfrogging ahead of the president as he's playing golf. So the mass contingency that stays with the president, his shift is around him, protecting him. You have that asset, that agent going ahead. Truly, like for that agent to spot somebody in the bushes, to notice a rifle, and then also to take aim, because that individual was outside the fence. Even when you take aim, shooting is such an important thing in the U.S. Secret Service, because the idea is when you're going to shoot, it's probably going to be around a lot of people, because the president's always in a lot of people. So for that agent to have that wherewithal to take that shot. And we are very fortunate that there was a witness. And that does beg the question of what kind of assets were outside of that area. We're looking at 300 to 500 yards. That's about like 3 football fields at minimum. It's a far distance. Are there any law enforcement assets? Because that witness was there and got the license plates, they were only able to catch him at that point because he was driving through license plate readers on the highway, and that is really what helped catch him. So we're looking at something different now. Not just that inner perimeter security that typically is what the Secret Service and law enforcement authorities were focusing on. But again, second incident, both times, long distances outside.
But he's played there many times, and they've probably had Secret Service and a perimeter set up many, many times. So what needs to be fixed? Right now.
More.
Yeah.
You need more.
Yeah.
You need more. We've got the UNGA coming up, United Nations General Assembly. A lot of people don't know it's U.S. Secret Service that does all that protection. So all those foreign heads of state that are coming to the U.S., they get protection. A lot of people may wonder why. We don't want anybody getting assassinated on U.S. soil. So you've got that man. Power needed there to protect these and these candidates. I think at this point, it is really all hands on deck. Secret Service has maxed out their people. They have finite resources at this moment. Long term, can they get more agents? Absolutely. But right now, they should be talking, and they probably are talking to law enforcement partners, asking for more assets. In a city like NYPD, there's plenty to take. But in smaller towns or areas that don't have that manpower, I wouldn't be surprised for them to ask for maybe military assets to help with outer perimeter security.
Because they rely so much on local law enforcement, and the campaign trail, of course, is not always in these big city areas. Let's bring Clint Watts into this profile that we're starting to see develop of this suspected gunman. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're in this period of what's known as stochastic terrorism. Essentially, you know what the target's going to be, but you don't know who the attacker is going to be, and you don't have a lot of threat intelligence on him. This individual, very focused on Ukraine, but when you look through just the social media history, not former military, trying to arrange kind of crazy schemes to bring different people from different countries to Ukraine, talking about Taiwan. So this is a very scattered history, a very checkered past. And at the same point, when you see an attack like we did just 2 months ago, now we have this attempted one. It's the worst. Worry really now of copycats. If you just look forward, a very tense political season. This has popped up a couple of times. And if you rewind 10 years, we'd be talking about ISIS. Very similar pattern of this contagion.
And you talk about a contagion. Is Part of that because people realize, well, hey, there's a vulnerability here with the Secret Service. I may actually be able to get a shot off because someone did.
Yeah, if you just think about all the way very similar pattern of this contagion.
And you talk about a contagion as part of that because people realize, well, hey, there's a vulnerability here with the Secret Service. I may actually be able to get a shot off because someone did.
Yeah, if you just think about all the way back to Congressman Giffords, right? The idea was people go out in the open, they talk to their constituents and voters, they try and, rally support. Very difficult to do that whenever you have a scenario where people with assault rifles can have standoff, can go after a target that's known, right? Former President Trump, he was just targeted 2 months ago. We still have somebody showing up just a few hundred yards away trying to repeat that attack. So very dangerous time for the country and for all of our leaders.
This morning, new questions being raised about the Secret Service after what the FBI describes as an apparent assassination attempt on former President Trump.
We live in dangerous times.
It comes just about 2 months after the first one at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. This time, officials say an agent opened fire after spotting a rifle near the former president's golf course in South Florida while Mr. Trump was playing.
He's not the sitting president. If he was, we would have had this entire golf course around it. The Secret Service did exactly what they should have done.
The agency has added personnel to Mr. Trump's protective detail since the Butler shooting, and they're also including more bulletproof glass at certain outdoor events. Lawmakers in both parties praising the Secret Service for its quick response while questioning whether more should be done.
We need to be taking a serious look at whether we are allocating resources correctly. Do we need more Secret Service agents?
The idea that there has been 2 attempts and they have been able to get close enough to the former president is deeply disturbing. I'm concerned that Donald Trump is actually not safe.
What happened Sunday, a contrast to the attempted assassination in July. In Florida, officials say Mr. Trump was 300 to 500 yards from where the weapon was spotted and walked away unharmed. In Pennsylvania, the shooter was about 150 yards at a publicly announced event and fired a shot that injured the former president's ear. The Secret Service has acknowledged a systematic breakdown in Butler, with Kimberly Cheadle resigning as the agency's chief just a day after taking heat from both parties on Capitol Hill.
You're full of today.
If you have an assassination attempt on a president, a former president, or a candidate, you need to resign.
Just days ago, the acting Secret Service director briefing lawmakers about the Pennsylvania attack after a bipartisan task force opened an investigation.
Are you confident that today Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are safe given their security details?
Well, we're working to help restore the confidence of the American people, and that's actually one of the things that this task force takes very seriously.
The previous Secret Service
Well, we're working to help restore the confidence of the American people, and that's actually one of the things that this task force takes very seriously.
The previous Secret Service director suggested the agency was working towards hiring an additional 1,500 personnel overall to meet its goal. The challenge for the Secret Service, of course, is adding people without lowering standards. As the acting director pointed out in recent testimony, it's a very competitive application with a low pass rate. But that acting chief says they've been focusing on measures to help with retention. We're also learning that congressional task force looking into the Pennsylvania shooting has also now requested a Secret Service briefing on what happened in Florida. So likely much more to come on all of this. Hoda, Savannah, Chanel.
Hallie, we're just 51 days out from the election. What are we hearing from the campaigns about all this tonight?
Well, let's start with the Trump campaign, Lester, which initially put out a short statement on gunshots in the vicinity of the former president, indicating he was okay. And then a fundraising email not long after contained what seemed to be a message from Mr. Trump saying, before rumors start spiraling out of control, I wanted you to hear this first. I am safe. The White House says President Biden and Vice President Harris have been briefed and are being kept regularly updated, with Vice President Harris writing in a post online tonight that she's glad Mr. Trump is safe and that violence has no place in America. That, Lester, is a sentiment echoed by her running mate, Tim Walz, as well.
It certainly rattle anyone. Do we have any sense of Mr. Trump's state of mind tonight, Hallie?
It's a great question, Lester. And allies who have spoken with him, including his running mate, say he's in good spirits, as they tell it. Mr. Trump had been golfing with a friend when the incident happened, and a source familiar with his thinking tells NBC News Mr. Trump was talking about his golf game after the shooting and is also saying that he is glad to be alive. Remember, after the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, Mr. Trump described that attempt on his life as surreal, showing up in person to the Republican convention just a couple days later. Mr. Trump does not have any in-person campaign stops scheduled for tomorrow, just this online event on X, formerly Twitter, but it is possible he could decide to appear or speak publicly maybe earlier in the day, given everything that has happened now. Lester.
But Springfield, Ohio
Before I begin, I want to make a quick reference. The attempted assassination against our former president in Florida yesterday. I commend the Secret Service for the expert handling of the situation. And the former president is protected from harm and the subject is in custody. An acting head of the Secret Service is in Florida today assessing what happened and determining whether any further adjustments need to be made to ensure the safety of our former president. Let me just say, there is no, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, those of you who know me, many of you do, no place in political violence for political violence in America. None. Zero. Never. I've always condemned political violence. I always will in America. In America, we resolve our differences peacefully at the ballot box, not at the end of a gun. America suffered too many times the tragedy of an assassin's bullet. It solves nothing and just tears the country apart. We must do everything we can to prevent it and never give it any oxygen.
Jesse mentioned Martin County, and we are joined now by the Martin County.
Mobilize our whole sheriff's office. We had a
Tonight, a new security challenge for the U.S. Secret Service in what has been a season of danger and heightened scrutiny. Security failure forced the resignation of then Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle. Later,
has been inundated by threats over the last several days, closing government buildings, schools, hospitals. Today, effectively closing a local university campus after administrators said someone threatened a mass shooting targeting Haitians. This in light of, officials say, a false online conspiracy theory alleging Haitian immigrants in that city are eating people's pets, something local authorities stress there is no evidence of. Haitians telling us they fear for their lives. Many have been threatened. And this theory this week has been a talking point of former President Trump's campaign, including at Tuesday's debate. And earlier today, a source familiar told NBC News Trump is planning to visit Springfield, Ohio soon. Those plans, of course, now likely up in the air. Lester?
But joining us now is Thomas Gibbons-Neff, Ukraine correspondent for the New York Times, who actually interviewed this suspect last year about his attempts to recruit Afghan soldiers to fight in Ukraine. Thomas, thank you for being with us this morning. What were your impressions of Routh when you spoke with him?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Mr. Routh was peculiar character, but I think a lot of those men and women who fled to Ukraine in the war's opening months definitely had a particular mindset and attitude, and Mr. Routh was definitely no different. He seemed way in over his head and very driven to help where he could. But I mean, that being said, it sounded like he was encountering a lot of obstacles and had no real idea on how to,
Yeah, you talk about your impression being he was in way over his head. I read the article you wrote this morning since his arrest. As you reflected on that conversation, and you write that his plan to recruit these fighters to help in Ukraine sounded ridiculous. You said, but the tone in Mr. Routh's voice said otherwise. He was going to back Ukraine's war effort no matter what. No matter what, that determination, what does that tell you about the way he operates?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't really underestimate Ukraine, Russia's invasion, and what it's like to be there. I use the term loosely, drinking the Kool-Aid. I think he was, inspired by the Ukrainian people. He, was talking to Afghans who were in terrible living conditions, having fled the Taliban takeover in August of 2021, and I think was well-meaning, but at the same time, right, he has a criminal record, and like many of those, we call them Walter Mitty types that fled to Ukraine as volunteers, was looking to reinvent himself. And I want to make it clear that there are many volunteers in Ukraine who are well-meaning and are there for the right reasons.
Quickly, if you will, did you have any concerns about his state of mind when you spoke with him?
Honestly, I mean, his state of mind was familiar to me, and reminded me of a lot of people in kind of that sphere that were very similar. And when I heard that he was accused of attempting to assassinate former President Trump, it struck me as surprising, but also not that surprising.
Thomas Gibbons, Neff, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your reporting with us and your observations. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Bringing right now Russell Moore. He's the editor-in-chief at Christianity Today and leads its public theology project. He's an author of a new piece for The Atlantic titled "Trump's Lie is Another Test."